Johnson & Johnson has announced that it will stop making and selling its talc-based baby powder.
This morning, there's a lot of reaction to a ruling that appears to associate the name with cancer.
Thousands of women in the U.S. and Canada sued after claiming the product caused ovarian cancer.
In 2006, I was diagnosed with malignant mesothelioma caused by second-hand exposure to asbestos. And they used the phrase, "We'll throw some chemo at it, but we don't expect it to work." My surgeries generally last between 8 and 12 hours, during which they split me from breastbone to pelvis, remove as much tumor as they can, infuse me with a heated chemotherapy wash for 2 hours, and then allow me to recuperate in the hospital for 10 days. I've done that 6 times.
It started with a whisper of white powder, soft, clean, and familiar. A product so trusted it became a symbol of care, passed from mother to child, from hospital wards to nursery shelves. Johnson & Johnson's baby powder was more than a brand. It was part of life. For over a century, it stood as a hallmark of purity, the scent of innocence, the feel of safety. We used it without a second thought. On our babies, on ourselves, believing in the promise that what was good enough for a newborn had to be good for everyone. But what if that trust was misplaced? Beneath the surface of that silky powder lies a story darker than most would dare imagine. Its key ingredient, talc, is often found near asbestos, a known carcinogen. And internal reports dating back to the 1950s hinted at contamination and were hidden. Now,
a jury in St. Louis has ordered Johnson & Johnson to pay $55 million to a woman who claims that talc in the company's baby powder caused her ovarian cancer. It's a second big verdict against the company recently.
Decades later, the cost of silence is measured in cancer diagnoses, class action lawsuits, and billions in settlements. Women who used it daily for years developed ovarian cancer. Some were told it was just bad luck, until they found each other, until the truth began to unravel. In 2020, Johnson & Johnson quietly pulled its talc-based powder from shelves in North America. They called it a commercial decision, but the lawsuits kept coming. Over 38,000 of them. So they created a shell company, dumped the liabilities into it, and filed for bankruptcy. If the product was safe, why the cover-up? This isn't just a scandal about baby powder. It's a warning, a reminder that even the most trusted brands can hide the most dangerous truths. This is the story of how a household name became a silent killer and the empire built to keep it quiet. Chapter 1. From Healers to Household Heroes. Picture this. It's the late 1800s. No smartphones, no Wi-Fi, and definitely no Netflix. Surgery back then? A nightmare. Doctors were still reusing instruments. Bloody, rusty, and straight up terrifying. That's where the Johnson brothers come in. Robert Wood Johnson and his siblings had one goal: stop people from dying from infections after surgery. Wild concept, right? So, in 1886, they started Johnson & Johnson, a company built on the simple idea of cleanliness saving lives. They made the first mass-produced sterile surgical tools and bandages, revolutionary at the time and honestly still kind of amazing. They weren't just changing medicine, they were giving people hope. Then in 1894, something soft and powdery hit the shelves: baby powder. Originally, it was a solution to a small but itchy problem. Doctors noticed patients were getting skin irritation from the plasters J&J made, so they tossed in some talc powder to soothe the skin. People loved it, so much so it made its way from hospitals to baby nurseries. Parents started using it on their newborns. And boom, it became a household staple. Over the years, baby powder wasn't just a product. It was a ritual, a symbol of love. That little white puff after a bath became a universal sign of care. It smelled like home, like comfort. Johnson & Johnson wasn't just a company anymore. It was the company. You didn't ask for baby powder, you asked for Johnson's. Just like people say Google it instead of search it. That's the level of trust we're talking about. Their logo became as iconic as Coca-Cola. Their ads showed smiling babies, loving moms, and gentle hands. The message? If you cared, you used J&J. And to make that message stick, they had a guiding principle called the Credo. It said, our first responsibility is to the patients, doctors, and mothers who use our products. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? But here's the thing about symbols. When they're pure, they make you feel safe. But when they crack, it shakes everything. So let's ask the question no one ever thought they'd have to. What happens when the thing you trusted the most, the thing you used on your baby's skin, is the very thing that could make them sick? Chapter 2. The Hidden Ingredient. Let's talk about talc. Yeah, that silky soft powder we all grew up with, the one that made baby bottoms smell like clouds and fresh laundry. Turns out, it's not as innocent as it looks. Talc is a mineral. It's mined from deep underground, where it's often chilling out right next to another mineral with a much darker reputation, asbestos. Now, if talc is the friendly neighbor, asbestos is the one who throws loud parties, ruins your lawn, and, oh yeah, causes cancer.
Really sad and shows what big business does in this world, and it's not fair.
There's so many people out here that are suffering from their product.
I never get to know what it's like to have my own child.
I just wish they would just own up to their responsibility and take care of the people that their product damaged.
See, asbestos is a known carcinogen. It's been linked to diseases like mesothelioma and ovarian cancer for decades. The stuff is so toxic, it's banned in many countries. So when talc and asbestos hang out together underground, it gets messy. Here's the kicker. Even with careful mining, it's nearly impossible to keep the asbestos completely out of the talc. And guess what mineral Johnson & Johnson used in their baby powder? Yep, talc. Now, internal documents, some dating back to the 1950s, show that J&J scientists were aware. Tests had picked up trace amounts of asbestos in their talc. Not once, not twice, multiple times. But the public never heard a peep. Instead, the powder kept getting marketed as pure, safe, and gentle enough for newborns. Ads showed moms lovingly patting it on their baby's cheeks. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, red flags were quietly stacking up. Imagine using something on your child every day for years, only to find out decades later it might have contained a toxic ingredient. It's like finding out the seatbelt you trusted in every car ride was actually frayed, and no one told you. But if the evidence was there, and the risks were real, why didn't anyone do something about it? Let's just say things were about to blow up. Chapter 3. The powder keg explodes. For years, baby powder was just part of life. A sprinkle here, a puff there, trusted by moms, grandmas, even hospitals. But then the unthinkable started happening. Women, thousands of them, began developing ovarian cancer. Others were diagnosed with mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive cancer linked to asbestos exposure. And many of them had one thing in common: a lifelong use of Johnson & Johnson baby powder. At first, it seemed like coincidence. Then patterns began to form. And eventually, people stopped asking if the powder was connected and started asking how long had J&J known. That's when the lawsuits started rolling in. One of the most jaw-dropping moments came in 2018. A Missouri jury awarded $4.7 billion to 22 women who claimed the powder caused their cancer. That wasn't just a legal win. It was a wake-up call.
Now, a U.S. bankruptcy judge has rejected Johnson & Johnson's $10 billion settlement proposal aimed at resolving thousands of lawsuits alleging that the company's baby powder and other talc products caused ovarian cancer. This marks the third time Johnson & Johnson's bankruptcy strategy has failed in court.
Johnson & Johnson, as you know, and as Pap and I have discussed, they'd been in bankruptcy court arguing that even though we make billions of dollars a year, we're totally bankrupt. We can't pay out all these, 60,000 claims, I think, still against them. We're going to give these people pennies compared to what they're actually owed.
Vintage bottles of the powder. Yes, bottles people had kept for decades were tested. And what did scientists find? Asbestos. Still there, still dangerous. Johnson & Johnson didn't exactly fold under pressure. Their defense was firm. Science doesn't prove it. But juries and judges around the country weren't buying it. The company poured millions into expert testimony and lab analysis, but the core question never changed. If you're so confident it's safe, why did you quietly pull it from U.S. shelves in 2020? They said it was a commercial decision. You know, falling sales, bad publicity. But to many, it looked like something else, damage control. And suddenly, a product that once symbolized purity now represented betrayal. The cracks in the trust were showing, and the fallout was far from over. Chapter 4. Dodging the Damage. By 2021, the heat on Johnson & Johnson was unbearable. Lawsuits were piling up like unopened mail. The brand was bleeding public trust, and instead of facing the music, J&J made a move that left everyone stunned. They pulled a classic corporate magic trick. They created a brand new company out of thin air. It was called LTL Management. This little spin-off didn't make products. It didn't sell anything. Its one job? Absorb all the baby powder lawsuits. Every single one. Then, boom, LTL filed for bankruptcy. Yep, Johnson & Johnson, a company worth $500 billion, used a legal loophole to say, hey, sorry, we're broke now. And just like that, they slammed the brakes on thousands of lawsuits. The strategy even has a name, the Texas two-step. No, not the dance. It's a maneuver where giant corporations dodge liability by spinning off a shell company and sending it straight to bankruptcy court. Lawmakers and victims were furious. One senator called it morally bankrupt. Another said, if you can buy your way out of justice, is it really justice? And here's the kicker. While LTL was drowning in legal mess, Johnson & Johnson was busy reorganizing. They split the company in two. One part took the lawsuits, the other took the profits. It was corporate chess at its finest, or depending on how you look at it, moral failure at its absolute worst. Because for the women and families still waiting for justice, it didn't feel like a clever business move. It felt like betrayal. Again, Chapter 5. Truth in a Cloud of Dust. Even after all the lawsuits, all the headlines, all the heartbreak, Johnson & Johnson still stands by their story. They say pulling talc off the shelves in 2020 was just a commercial decision, not an admission of guilt, not a sign of danger, just a business call. But that's hard to swallow when over 38,000 lawsuits say otherwise.
In February, another St. Louis jury awarded $72 million to the family of Jacqueline Fox of Birmingham, Alabama, who died of ovarian cancer last October. She too used J&J's talcum powder products.
Mothers, daughters, cancer survivors, ordinary people kept coming forward with the same terrifying story. I trusted this product. I used it for years. And now, I'm fighting for my life. And yet, J&J insists science is on their side. They say the product was safe. They say asbestos was never present. But if that's true, why switch to cornstarch? Why quietly phase out talc after more than a century? Why file for bankruptcy through a shell company? Why fight so hard in court, only to settle billions in damages later? It's a cloud of dust that still hasn't settled. And in that cloud is truth grasping for air.
In this videotaped statement, J&J's chief medical officer defended the company's use of talc.
We are confident in our position that there's no causal association between talc and ovarian cancer.
For the people still battling cancer, for the families that lost loved ones, for the public still wondering if the powder in their drawer is safe to touch, this isn't just about a product. It's about trust. And when a brand that once symbolized purity becomes the center of a health crisis, we're left with one big question. Was it all just a tragic misunderstanding or a cover-up too big to contain? You've seen the story. You've heard the voices. Now the question is, what do you believe?